Tai could not avoid a similar fate. This stream of killing aura truly exceeded the imagination of everyone present. Xiang Tian took advantage of the chaotic atmosphere and quickly tried to slip away. However, he couldn't escape Schwer's notice. She still madly pursued him from behind. Xiang Tian continued to use the power of the Overlord Ghost Mask to deal with Schwer. He still stood with his back to her. As her sword got closer and closer to him, he suddenly commanded, "Explode for me." Xiang Tian moved to one side, and Schwer's sword strike went off course. Xiang Tian's hand accidentally touched Schwenner's bottom. Schwenner's face turned red, and she turned to look at Xiang Tian, speechless. Xiang Tian stood opposite Schwer and said to her disdainfully, "If I don't give you a little punishment, you'll really push your luck." He began to threaten Schwer, "If you dare to cause trouble again, I will strip you of all your clothes." Then, without another word, he left, leaving Schwer filled with indignation. The old man Tai hurriedly chased after Xiang Tian. He couldn't let him easily take away the treasure he had spent 2 years searching for. 2MO and Granny Ming could no longer stand still. They had to act quickly. Granny Ming threw something out. 2MO activated his special ability, and a pair of wings grew from his back. He and Granny Ming's staff chased. After Xiang Tian, 2MO demanded that Xiang Tian give him the Emperor's bone, and he would ask the Situ Imperial Mansion to spare his life. Xiang Tian glanced back. He still didn't know the clear origin of the treasure in his hand, so he couldn't understand why they were chasing him so frantically. Tai launched a palm strike at Xiang Tian to stop him. His hand stretched out, wanting to grab Xiang Tian. Xiang Tian looked back. This urgent situation made it impossible for him to react. He had underestimated the man's power, and was finally struck to the ground by his hand. Xiang Tian clutched his chest and forced himself to sit up. Behind him were 3 masters cornering him. At the moment when Xiang Tian was in a life-or-death situation, a familiar figure appeared. Fei Yang stood before Xiang Tian, to his astonishment. He stretched out his hand, and a single palm strike blocked the joint attacks of Tai, Granny Ming, and 2MO. Fei Yang turned his head to look at Xiang Tian and wearily told him to leave quickly. Xiang Tian obediently listened to him and quickly left the place. Fei Yang stood proudly before their alliance. Taoist Master Lin was furious when he saw Fei Yang helping the enemy escape. He shouted and questioned Fei Yang. "How dare you, when Tai Fei Yang? Do you know what you were doing?" Time passed, and thanks to Fei Yang's help, Xiang Tian returned safely to Qingzhou Academy. He took off the Overlord Ghost mask from his face, revealing a worried expression. Fei Yang's sudden appearance made him suspect that Fei Yang had recognized his true identity behind the mask. The more Xiang Tian thought about it, the stranger it felt. The Overlord Ghost mask could clearly conceal his aura, so how could Fei Yang know it was him? This was completely illogical. The more he thought, the more confused he became. If Fei Yang didn't know it was him, why would he help? He then thought of Fei Yang. That Taoist Tai's cultivation was extremely profound, and he didn't know if Fei Yang could retreat unscathed. His current situation was a tangled mess. His master Wu Qingqing's whereabouts were unknown. If something happened to Fei Yang because of him, how could he face his master? Xiang Tian thought that if he let his martial uncle fight alone while he leisurely returned to Qingzhou Academy, it would be truly unforgivable. He urgently wanted to return to Blood God Mountain. He had to ensure his safety first, then think of a way to meet Xiaoqin later. Fei Yang was currently facing a group of people who only cared about their own interests. Granny Ming and 2MO charged forward simultaneously, wanting to teach Fei Yang a lesson for daring to ruin their good fortune. Fei Yang paid them no mind, taking a sip of wine, then gently extended his arm, creating a defensive wall. Just this small movement from him stopped Granny Ming and 2MO in their tracks. Not only that, but they were also pushed back by Fei Yang's defensive force. Tai looked at Fei Yang's defense. If he wasn't mistaken, Fei Yang had just used the Emperor's art. Fei Yang coughed a few times, calmly took a sip of wine, and casually answered Tai's question. So what? Tai slowly approached Fei Yang, realizing that Fei Yang was suffering from internal injuries. Serious ones, at least injuries that were 20 years old or more. The information from Tai's mouth left Granny Ming and 2MO extremely bewildered. Emperor's art, old wounds, S.O. You are the Emperor's disciple. Fei Yang paid no attention, dusted off a rock, and then sat down casually. In a not-so-pleasant tone, he questioned them. You plunder my master's remains, and then say, I have no right to touch them. Don't you find that ridiculous? The more 2MO listened, the stranger he felt. He seemed to realize he was missing some important detail and turned to ask Taoist Master Lin, what's going on? Weren't we told the Emperor's disciple was your academy's headmaster? Why is it a Taoist master now? Taoist Master Lin became extremely hesitant. He also didn't know what was going on. Tai didn't care. To him, whether he was the Emperor's disciple or not didn't matter now. Emperor Ming was dead, and Fei Yang's current cultivation was not what it used to be. He demanded that Fei Yang obediently listen to him and reveal the whereabouts of the masked person who had just stolen the Emperor's bone. Fei Yang seemed to be deliberately provoking the old man. He bluntly told them, don't know him, not acquainted. Fei Yang's non-answer drove Tai mad. You don't know him and aren't acquainted, yet you helped him. Fei Yang truly had a talent for provoking people. He continued, if he could steal the Emperor's bone, it proves he has a fateful connection with my master, Emperor Ming. Why should I stop him? He took the Emperor's bone, and the blood god's arm didn't react, which says it all. Don't think that just because Fei Yang has been silent all these years, he knows nothing. I know very well the purpose of each person here waiting for the Emperor's bone. Schwetter stepped forward. She loudly said she knew who the masked person was. All eyes here turned to her, awaiting the information she would provide. Schwetter confidently revealed the person's identity. His name is Chi Situ, and he is from Tianluo Academy. The gazes of Tu Mo and Granny Ming once again turned towards Taoist Master Lin. Taoist Master Lin pondered for a moment. In his memory, there was no one named Chi Situ in his Tianluo Academy. How could Tu Mo believe Taoist Master Lin's words at this moment? Moreover, the Emperor's bone was a very important item related to many future issues. He demanded that Taoist Master Lin quickly hand over this Situ person, and the matter would not be pursued further. Taoist Master Lin tried his best to explain that there was indeed no one named Chi Situ in his academy. But all his words were useless now. No one believed him. He was even struck in the stomach by Granny Ming for the crime of hiding the culprit. Granny Ming was extremely angry. She slammed her staff on the ground and accused Taoist Master Lin. First, you deceived us that your headmaster was the Emperor's disciple, secretly sent your own disciple to steal the Emperor's bone, and now you pretend not to know. I see you are truly a wolf in sheep's clothing. Taoist Master Lin repeatedly pleaded his innocence. He really didn't know. At this moment, Xiang Tian was secretly standing behind a rock, observing the situation. He had heard all of Fei Yang's earth-shattering stories with his own ears, and he never expected that Fei Yang was the legendary Emperor Ming's disciple. Seeing Fei Yang smiling and talking day after day, who would have known he had such a glorious background? From what he knew, the peerless prodigy Emperor Ming had emerged 200 years ago. Countless dynasties and orthodoxies submitted to him, and for a time, divine statues of him were erected all over the Huanling continent. At the same time as Emperor Ming, there were two other prodigies who also proclaimed themselves emperors, Emperor Yu Wu and Emperor Joqing Yuan. Suddenly, 20 years ago, Emperor Ming died violently. After that, the orthodoxy he built was gradually suppressed and destroyed, and countless divine statues were demolished. That was all Xiang Tian knew. He was completely clueless about the deeper matters. What exactly happened? Emperor Ming had since become a taboo on the Huanling continent, even becoming a forbidden word not to be mentioned. While Xiang Tian was lost in his thoughts, Taoist Master Lin was being beaten black and blue by Tu Mo for the crime of lying and harboring a thief. Taoist Master Lin continuously cried out that he was being wronged, repeatedly saying that someone wanted to harm him. Tu Mo didn't believe a word he said and continued to ruthlessly attack Taoist Master Lin. Taoist Master Lin was beaten until he coughed up blood. Before this matter was resolved, another one arose. They were attracted by a rumbling sound. Everyone turned their heads to look. In front of them was a giant blood person. Fei Yang looked up and softly called out Master twice. The blood person let out a roar. Tai felt the situation was not good and hurriedly ordered his disciples to quickly retreat. Fei also became nervous and told Schwerer to retreat with her. Tu Mo and Granny Ming fled with all their might, leaving Taoist Master Lin behind in this desolate place. The blood person reached down to the ground and picked up Taoist Master Lin like a rag. Taoist Master Lin struggled in fear, but all resistance was futile. He was crushed by the blood person and dissolved into blood. Xiang Tian witnessed everything from behind the rock. Back then, it was Taoist Master Lin who, in order to cling to the Situ Imperial Mansion, had targeted him. If it weren't for him, Tu Shui would not have dared to cripple his cultivation and extract his flood dragon bloodline in front of the disciples of Qingzhou Academy. Now, his ending was something he brought upon himself. What Xiang Tian found strange now was that after Taoist Master Lin died, he turned into a blood-colored crystal stone. Moreover, it looked exactly like the blood-colored crystal stone he had obtained from killing the blood person before. Only the killing aura was much denser. Tai and his two disciples had not left yet. They were observing the situation from a distance. How Rand turned to ask his master, can a living person also produce an energy crystal stone after death? Tai explained with a pensive face, the blood god has appeared, and Blood God Mountain has turned into a land of great evil. The thing I feared most has happened. I'm afraid this place will fall into great chaos next. The killing aura here is getting thicker and thicker. He ordered Hao Ran and Shao Qin to leave this place quickly. Granny Ming and Tu Mo observed the situation before them and understood a little. Granny Ming explained to Tu Mo, this blood god must have a great origin. 2MO was not without understanding either. After a person dies, a part of their cultivation condenses into a crystal stone. This is not something an ordinary person can do. Only that Emperor Ming had such a miraculous technique. Xiang Tian also asked himself, the giant has appeared, the killing aura fills the sky, what on earth is it? Xiang Tian accidentally saw that Shao Qin was about to leave. If he missed this opportunity, he didn't know when they would meet again. Xiang Tian gathered all his courage and called out Shao Qin's name. Shao Qin heard the familiar voice, her face lit up, and she hurriedly landed on the ground. Her eyes filled with tears. She truly couldn't believe she could meet Xiang Tian again. The touching scene was suddenly ruined by the appearance of Hao Ran. He stood in front of Xiang Tian, pointed all 5 fingers at his face, and then began to interrogate him. Who are you? Is my junior sister someone an ordinary person can approach? Xiang Tian loudly told the person in front of him to get out of the way, not to obstruct the reunion of him and his sister. Xiang Tian's attitude was unacceptable to Hao Ran. His aura began to pour out, preparing for a life-and-death battle with Xiang Tian. Shao Qin hurriedly ran up to stop him. She began to explain to Hao Ran, Brother Xiang Tian is not an outsider. He is the person closest to me. Then, she took the initiative to step to Xiang Tian's side and actively took his hand. Shao Qin couldn't control her emotions again. Her tears fell. She was truly happy to see him again. Xiang Tian gently stroked her head. Seeing that she was safe and sound, Xiang Tian was very relieved. Hao Ran saw Shao Qin and Xiang Tian being so intimate and naturally felt jealous. He couldn't have imagined that Shao Qin had a relative named Xiang Tian. Tai stepped forward and slowly asked Shao Qin, is this the Xiang Tian you often mentioned to me, whose cultivation was crippled and bloodline extracted? Shao Qin quickly pulled her hand away from Xiang Tian's. She turned to look at Tai, begging him to help Xiang Tian. Tai stroked his beard. He could help Xiang Tian, but he had a condition that he needed him to agree to. He demanded that he stay away from Shao Qin and never see her again. Shao Qin softly called out master twice. The person she had been longing for was being blocked by her master just after they met. Before she could finish her sentence, Tai cut her off, telling her not to say any more. He then walked closer to Xiang Tian and said to him, I understand your situation. Targeted by the Situ Imperial Mansion, you went from a talented genius to a cripple. However, I'm not telling you to stay away from Shao Qin because of the Situ Imperial Mansion. This old man doesn't need to fear the Situ Imperial Mansion. He explained to him, it's just that your and Shao Qin's futures are not on the same level. In the future, Xiang Tian won't even have the right to look up at Shao Qin. If Xiang Tian agreed to stay away from Shao Qin, he could not only restore his cultivation, but also grant him a 6th grade spirit beast bloodline. In the face of Tai's words, Xiang Tian remained motionless. Hao Ran was very displeased with Xiang Tian's reaction. He pointed at Xiang Tian's face and shouted, everything my master does is for Shao Qin's sake. He suddenly blamed everything on Xiang Tian, telling him, without you, Junior's sister could focus on her cultivation and become an unprecedented existence. Tai was in no hurry to get Xiang Tian's answer. He would give him time to think. He then told Shao Qin and Hao Ran to leave quickly. Just as Tai had taken a few steps, Xiang Tian gave his answer. He directly refused his offer. Before Tai could speak, Hao Ran called him out by name, expressing his anger. Who would have thought that Xiang Tian would refuse such a good offer? Tai asked Xiang Tian once more, have you thought it through? Xiang Tian still didn't answer. He continued, what I'm giving you is a great opportunity. Moreover, the choice I am giving you is the best outcome for you regarding Shao Qin. How many times did Xiang Tian have to say it for this old man to understand? He had already said it. He did not agree. Xiang Tian's attitude made Hao Ran unable to bear it any longer. He wanted to teach Xiang Tian a lesson on behalf of his master. He then took the initiative to charge at Xiang Tian. Shao Qin hurriedly ran out to stop him. She would absolutely not allow anyone to harm Xiang Tian. The Xiang Tian of now was different from the Xiang Tian of the past. He told Shao Qin to step aside, that he knew how to handle it. Hao Ran still looked down on him. He began to attack him with his fists. He wanted to see what skills he had to dare refuse his master's help. Xiang Tian paid no attention to Hao Ran's words. He answered him with action. One punch sent him flying backward, leaving Hao Ran utterly bewildered. When Shao Qin saw Xiang Tian like this, felt very happy inside. She also realized he had recovered from his injuries. Tai Yi stroked his beard a few times, admitting that he had misjudged. But so what if Xiang Tian's injuries had recovered? In his eyes, the boy's cultivation was too low. Even if his aptitude wasn't bad, he was still not qualified to look up to Shao Qin. Hao Ran was furious after being struck by Xiang Tian's palm, and he wanted to continue testing his skills. With Xiang Tian, he took out a zither and proposed another battle with Xiang Tian. A look of surprise naturally appeared on Xiang Tian's face. Wasn't the thing in Hao Ran's hand that of a Guqin sound warrior? with a weapon in hand. Hao Ran smirked and replied to him, "So you have some knowledge." He sat down, preparing to play the instrument, then said to Xiang Tian, "My fist techniques may not be able to kill you, but be careful of my guqin sound." Chord after chord was unleashed. Xiao Qin was in a very difficult position. She hurriedly reminded Xiang Tian, "Brother Xiang Tian, senior brother Xing has extremely high talent in guqin sound. You must not block it directly." But for Xiang Tian, the more challenging something was, the more he liked it. He would show him what a true genius was. He unexpectedly took out a guqin. The fact that Xiang Tian also had a guqin did not make Hao Ran feel scared. He arrogantly said to him, "Xiang Tian, the guqin is not something just anyone can learn. Especially the killing guqin. A country bumpkin like you is even less worthy of learning it." As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately strummed the guqin to attack him. The melody of the music transformed into daggers, flying straight towards Xiang Tian. Xiang Tian was not afraid at all. To him, whether he was worthy or not was not for Hao Ran to decide. At this moment, Feier happened to see an explosion appear before her eyes. She immediately recognized it was Xiang Tian. 2MO hurriedly told everyone to quickly go over there and check the situation. 2MO also really wanted to see what kind of skills the one who dared to arrogantly cripple Tu Kuang actually had. Over here, Xiang Tian played a concerto, creating a defensive circle, protecting himself from Hao Ran's sword-like notes. Xiang Tian surprised Hao Ran again. He didn't expect him to be able to block a move from him. Xiang Tian began to speak condescendingly to him. "With just your skills, you call yourself a guqin sound warrior? I can even give you a free move." Hao Ran was furious. What Xiang Tian said was no different from insulting him, was it? He continued to strum the guqin to attack him. This time, the sound of his guqin turned into meteorite spheres. Xiao Qin, standing outside, was extremely worried, afraid that Xiang Tian would be in danger. She shouted loudly for Xiang Tian to quickly get out of the way. This move was Hao Ran's most powerful killing move. It couldn't be blocked directly. Just then, Feier's group also appeared, just in time to witness the rumored guqin sound warrior with their own eyes. 2MO watched from the sidelines, thinking that Xiang Tian was surely dead this time. However, he also felt a little regretful that Xiang Tian wouldn't die by his hands. Xiang Tian hurriedly played his guqin, using the heavenly sound vast concerto. Each melody rang out, countering Hao Ran's magma spheres. As expected, Xiang Tian's level was still a notch above Hao Ran's. The sound of his guqin shattered his opponent's magma spheres. Hao Ran's guqin broke in two. 2MO's group was utterly bewildered. Xiang Tian could actually defeat a guqin sound warrior. Hao Ran was more surprised than anyone, his body trembling as he looked at Xiang Tian. Xiang Tian put his guqin away. He was locked in a sky prison for 3 years and followed his master to roam the all heavens and myriad realms for several hundred years. Not only did he bring back the strongest bloodline of the heavens and a supreme cultivation method, but he also learned 12 types of top-tier professional skills, including that of a guqin sound warrior. During his soul's travels, he was once trapped in a place called Guqin Sound Valley for 10 years. That place was once the inheritance ground of the Guqin demon. For those 10 years, he practiced the Guqin almost without rest. Finally, he obtained the Guqin demon's inheritance and broke out of the valley. Having been so thoroughly humiliated by Xiang Tian, Hao Ran forced himself to stand up. Today, he had to take his life. Tai Yi suddenly ordered Hao Ran to stop. He said to him, "Xiang Tian used an illusory ancient Guqin to fight you. He already gave you a concession. The strength as a Guqin sound warrior that he has displayed shows an extraordinary innate talent. He is not someone you can compare to." Feier had to look at Xiang Tian with different eyes. She remembered very clearly that when he was with her, he had never learned the Guqin. She became even more curious, wondering what Xiang Tian had been through in the past 3 years. The corner of her mouth curled up, and she said to herself, "Sooner or later, I will dig up all of his secrets." Tai also didn't expect Xiang Tian to be so formidable. Not only a genius, but also a Guqin sound warrior with extremely high talent. He admitted that he had greatly underestimated Xiang Tian. He suddenly made a new offer. 10 years. Every 10 years, he would let him meet Xiao Qin once. In addition, he could also recommend a Guqin master to be his teacher. Xiang Tian frowned in thought. Then he asked him back, "Or else what?" He turned to look at Xiao Qin, his voice gentle as he said to her, "Xiao Qin, let's go." Seeing Xiang Tian again, Xiao Qin was willing to give up everything and follow him. She bowed her head to thank Tai Yi for taking care of and helping her over the years. Then she added, "Before I became your disciple, I once said that if one day Brother Xiang Tian came to find me, I would not hesitate to go with him. I hope Master understands. I will repay your kindness in the future." Tai let out a long sigh. Hao Ran was extremely angry. He began to blame Xiao Qin. "Junior sister, why are you so foolish? Even if he has talent, how great are your prospects in future? By cultivating with Master, you could even hope to become an emperor." Then he turned to Xiang Tian. What can Xiao Qin possibly do by following Xiang Tian? Xiao Qin's words were spoken and could not be changed. She took Xiang Tian's hand, wanted to leave this place with him. 2MO suddenly stepped out and told the two of them to stop. He pointed to himself, then asked Xiang Tian, "Do you know who I am?" How could Xiang Tian not know he was from the Sidu family? 2MO looked at Xiang Tian with an amused expression and said to him, "Young man, you even dare to cripple someone from the Sidhu family. I have to say, you've got guts that few others have." Xiang Tian understood the implication in his words. He brought up his status as a student of Qingzhou Academy. Moreover, as a student of the preparatory class for Tongtian Academy, he didn't believe the man would dare to kill him. 2MO emphasized each word to Xiang Tian. "I wouldn't dare to kill a student from Tongtian Academy's preparatory class, but I dare to cripple you." After speaking, he rushed towards Xiang Tian. He acknowledged that his talent as a Guqin sound warrior was rare even in the Situ imperial residence, and he most enjoyed crippling geniuses like Xiang Tian. His fist sent him flying backward. 2MO closed his eyes, savoring the feeling of killing a future peerless master. It was absolutely wonderful. Before Xiang Tian could even react, 2MO rushed towards him again. His fist carried immense power, making it impossible for Xiang Tian to defend. At the most dangerous moment, Xiao Qin acted in time. She used her sash to block a fatal blow from 2MO for Xiang Tian. Xiang Tian turned to look at Xiao Qin. He didn't think Xiao Qin's cultivation had progressed so quickly that she could block a blow from a Situ family member. At this moment, he thought back to what Tai he had just said, wondering what Xiao Qin's talent was. Xiao Qin suggested that Xiang Tian leave first, and she would hold these people back here. 2MO was full of momentum, openly scorning Xiao Qin. "You think you can stop me with just Xiao Qin?" He quickly shifted his target to Xiao Qin, but just then, Tai extended his arm. Blocking 2MO, 2MO looked at Tai Yi with a strange expression. "Is Tai Yi protecting Xiang Tian?" He withdrew his hand, then said to 2MO, "I don't care who else you kill, but you are not to touch my disciple." Fei Yang appeared out of nowhere. He flew in the air, suddenly grabbed Xiang Tian's arm, and wanted to take him away from this place. Xiang Tian and Xiao Qin had just been reunited, and now they had to part in an instant. Fei Yang reassured him, "They aren't going anywhere. What are you rushing for? Right now, you can't deal with any of those people." The reason Fei Yang was in such a hurry was because he also had something he wanted to tell Xiang Tian. Fei Yang and Xiang Tian returned at Shanghai Academy. Fei Yang continuously coughed up blood, making Xiang Tian extremely worried. He waved his hand to reassure Xiang Tian that he was fine. It was just an old wound acting up. Then, he told Xiang Tian to sit down next to him. His tone was very serious. It was time for him to let Xiang Tian know some things. Only then did Xiang Tian hastily ask Fei Yang, "Martial Uncle One, you are an emperor's disciple, a disciple of Emperor Ming." Fei Yang nodded. He asked Xiang Tian if he was very surprised. How could Xiang Tian not be surprised? He continued to ask him, "It is indeed very surprising. So, is my master Wu Qingsheng also?" Fei Yang shook his head. He told Xiang Tian that Wu Qingsheng had no relationship with Emperor Ming. "Your master is investigating the movements of the missing insectoid race this time. No need to worry too much." With her strength, even if she entered the insectoid race's lair, she could still escape. Fei Yang had gone looking for her. It's very likely she found some clues, which is why she hasn't returned yet. Xiang Tian found it strange. Could the things Fei Yang was telling him be related to Emperor Ming? Fei Yang's gaze shifted elsewhere. Everything must be told from 10 years ago. 10 years ago, Shanghai Academy was still very lively. The 10 disciples he accepted here were all dragons and phoenixes among men. On that night, 10 years ago, all the disciples were crippled and killed. For 10 years, no one entered Shanghai Academy. Fei Yang became the laughingstock of the entire Qingzhou Academy. He turned his head and asked Xiang Tian if he knew why. How could Xiang Tian possibly know the answer? He shook his head repeatedly. Fei Yang continued the story. It was all related to the inheritance of his master, Emperor Ming. Xiang Tian couldn't remain calm any longer. He excitedly asked him again, "What? Emperor Ming has an inheritance?" Fei Yang spoke of Emperor Ming with a very proud tone. "My master, Emperor Ming, was a peerless talent. He rose with an invincible posture, his emperor's arts killing all the prodigies of his generation until no one dared to raise their head. He was also the fastest to reach the emperor realm in the last several 100,000 years of the Huanling continent. At that time, the entire continent regarded Emperor Ming with pride, building statues to worship him. Until my master suddenly died. Everything collapsed. The more Xiang Tian listened, the stranger he felt. Why did he suddenly die? How could an emperor suddenly die? With the current situation, Fei Yang could only tell him this much. It was not yet time for Xiang Tian to know the rest. The matter for today, he told him, was about Emperor Ming's inheritance. When his master was alive, his emperor's arts were unparalleled in all of history. After his death, his inheritance was naturally coveted by countless people. But he died suddenly, and to dispel the thoughts of others, he directly immolated himself, cutting off the inheritance. But some people still managed to take away his hardest piece of bone, which was the emperor's bone. An image of the bone fragment he had taken from that giant arm flashed in Xiang Tian's mind. That was also the bone fragment he had taken from the chest. Fei Yang added, Blood God Mountain is a place of extreme mean. Legend says that an ancient god or demon died in this place. Those people placed the emperor's bone there. Every year, they send a large number of slaves to this place, using living people to nurture it. The emperor's bone gradually matured, was nurtured and grew, becoming the blood god giant. Xiang Tian became extremely agitated. Such a cruel and wicked thing, using living people to nurture the blood god. Could the inheritance be inside the blood god? Xiang Tian's speculation was not wrong at all. The blood god was, after all, grown from Fei Yang's master's blood and bone. It naturally carried the imprint of his master's inheritance from when he was alive. He revealed a shocking piece of information to Xiang Tian. One only needs to kill the blood god to obtain the inheritance. Things were gradually becoming more complicated. Now that the blood god has appeared, alarming all directions, killing the blood god could grant the inheritance. Xiang Tian was afraid that this would lead to a scramble by countless people. Every time he mentioned this matter, Fei Yang would let out a frustrated sigh. The more he thought about it, the angrier he felt. So many years had passed, and he was still unwilling to let his master's inheritance fall into the hands of others. So he established Songhai Academy to train disciples. The story goes back to 10 years ago, when they went to Blood God Mountain to retrieve the inheritance, but they failed. In one night, Songhai Academy suffered tragic casualties among all its disciples. Since that day, Fei Yang has always blamed himself. It was all his fault. The responsibility was his. He was the one who harmed everyone. Fei Yang drank as he spoke, as if drowning his feelings of uselessness in alcohol. He continued to tell Xiang Tian, "After that, Qing Shang took you as a disciple. At that time, your talent was outstanding. Both Qing Shang and I saw in you the hope of inheriting Emperor Ming's legacy. But then something unexpected happened. You were crippled by the Situ imperial residence." Fei Yang originally thought that Xiang Tian would fall into despair because of that, but he never expected him to make a comeback. Not only that, but he was even more outstanding than before. After hearing a part of the story about the fall of Songhai Academy, Xiang Tian vaguely understood Fei Yang's meaning. He pointed to himself and asked, "Martial Uncle One, are you telling me to go and fight for Emperor Ming's inheritance?" Fei Yang shook his head slightly and answered Xiang Tian, "No need. The situation is different now. It's no longer something I can control. It's extremely dangerous. In the current situation, for you to go and fight for the inheritance is to face a 90% chance of death." He patted his chest with great reverence and introduced to Xiang Tian, "I am the only disciple of Emperor Ming. That blood god has a special connection with me." Then he pointed at Xiang Tian and continued to tell him, "At the critical moment, you just need to get close to the blood god, and I will use a secret art to transfer the inheritance imprint onto you." He instructed Xiang Tian, "After you obtain the inheritance, don't show it off and don't tell anyone. Leave this place alone, go into hiding, and just focus on completely mastering the Emperor's arts." A different worry immediately arose in Xiang Tian's heart. If he left, what would happen to him? Fei Yang shook his head again. He didn't need Xiang Tian to worry about him, because using the secret art, connecting with the blood god, comes at a price. His voice was grave as he reminded Xiang Tian, "Receiving Emperor Ming's inheritance is a great opportunity, but also a great danger. If you're discovered to have the inheritance before you have mastered the Emperor's arts, you will surely die." But if Xiang Tian is worried and wants to give up, he can also understand. Not only did Xiang Tian not feel scared, he answered Fei Yang with a determined face, "An opportunity like this, of course I won't give it up. Martial Uncle One, I want to know, what price do you have to pay?" Fei Yang had to sigh again. He frowned and told Xiang Tian, "Before, the blood god had not fully matured. I couldn't connect with the blood god, so I sent the disciples of Songhai Academy to seize the inheritance, which led to the tragedy. Now that the blood god's imprint has fully matured, I just need to consume my essence blood to perform the secret art and transfer the imprint to you, and it will be a great success. It just consumes a huge amount of essence blood. The best outcome is becoming a cripple." As Fei Yang was speaking, his voice suddenly faltered. If he didn't want bad things to happen to him, then unless one thing. His hesitation made Xiang Tian extremely anxious. He slammed the table and asked loudly, "Unless what?" Fei Yang said it. "Unless the piece of the Emperor's bone that was stolen is on you. That way, the blood god will acknowledge you more, and it will be much easier for you to receive the inheritance." Xiang Tian seemed to have realized the key point. He took out a glowing object from inside his clothes. Then he held it out in front of Fei Yang and asked him, "Martial Uncle One, is this the Emperor's bone you were talking about?" Fei Yang was also extremely surprised to see the Emperor's bone in Xiang Tian's hand. A suspicion arose in his heart. Could it be that Xiang Tian was the one who took the Emperor's bone? Xiang Tian confidently introduced that he was the one who took the Emperor's bone. Xiang Tian surprised and filled Fei Yang with pride. He patted Xiang Tian's shoulder, praising him endlessly. He suddenly felt that something was not right. He looked at Xiang Tian with suspicious eyes, then began to question him. "You directly touched the Emperor's bone, and you didn't feel any unusual discomfort?" Xiang Tian didn't feel any discomfort at all, just an incredibly refreshing sensation. Fei Yang laughed again. He said to him, "It's fate. The Emperor's bone doesn't reject you. You are indeed the most suitable person to inherit it. Your master and I were not wrong about you." He recounted the legend of his master. To Xiang Tian, in his memory, Emperor Ming was a figure of immense spirit and invincible posture. Even after death, a single piece of his bone was something ordinary people could hardly touch. Otherwise, Tai Yi Daoist of the Qingquan residence would have obtained the emperor's bone long ago. Tai Yi sat down and chuckled, because if Xiang Tian had the emperor's bone, it proved that his master had acknowledged him. In fact, the disciples of Shanghai Academy all failed, partly because they were not fully recognized by his master. He suggested to Xiang Tian that he should stay in Shanghai Academy for the next few days to refine the emperor's bone. Because the emperor's bone is not only related to the inheritance, but also contains countless mysteries that even he doesn't understand. The killing aura of Blood God Mountain is overwhelming. No one dares to enter at will. They can only wait until the killing aura dissipates. Then everyone will compete for the inheritance. Moreover, the people of the Situ Imperial residence are watching Xiang Tian like hungry tigers. So for now, he thinks the best way is for Xiang Tian to not go out for the time being. How could Xiang Tian accept not going out for the time being? If he didn't go out, how could he meet Shao Qin? Fei Yang stood up. He reassured Xiang Tian, no need to worry about Shao Qin. She is still fine. He explained to Xiang Tian, although Tai Yi Daoist covets Emperor Ming's inheritance, he is still considered an upright person. His cultivation is extremely profound. For Shao Qin to take him as a master is, all in all, a good thing. After saying all this to Xiang Tian, he also left. Before leaving, he reminded Xiang Tian again, I'm afraid I won't be here for the next few days. You can cultivate with peace of mind, and wait until Blood God Mountain reopens. Just like that, 5 days passed. While Xiang Tian was focused on practicing with the Emperor's bone, the plant and the piglet were extremely carefree and at ease. The piglet lay stretched out, complaining to Xiang Tian, when can we go out to play? I'm bored to death. Xiang Tian slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the Emperor's bone in his palm. After 5 days of refining, although the Emperor's bone hadn't changed, but he could feel that the Emperor's bone was as vast as the sea, making it incomprehensible to people. It was worthy of being a relic of Emperor Ming. He thought of Fei Yang again, who still hadn't returned to the academy to this day. The plant walked over and offered him tea. The plant naturally turned her face away from Xiang Tian. The piglet, seeing through life, deliberately said through gritted teeth, little sister, what are you shy about? Have you fallen for him? Then it endlessly criticized the plant's taste for falling for Xiang Tian's looks. The plant covered her face in embarrassment. She used a vine to lightly smack its bottom. The piglet's eyes welled up with tears. It shouted loudly at the plant, you speak so affectedly, hit people without distinguishing right from wrong. You're not cute at all. Xiang Tian had to step in to make peace. He had to go out and check the situation now. He was worried something might have happened to Fei Yang. Just as he stepped out of Shanghai Academy, he happened to meet Chen Lin and Aaron Yeo. Chen Lin said to Xiang Tian, we were worried about you, but we didn't dare to come in to find you, so we've been waiting outside for you these past few days. Xiang Tian was surprised. Why didn't you dare to come in? Aaron Yeo then explained to Xiang Tian, because a few days ago Martial Uncle once said, whoever dares to step into Shanghai Academy will be killed without mercy.